During my son's graduation party, my niece pulled me aside and said, "Uncle, can I tell you something serious? It's about Richard." My stomach dropped. I looked over Richard, my son, across the yard, popping champagne with his friends. "What's up?" I asked. Jade tugged my arm and led me toward the side gate, away from the noise. "I can't say it here. Please." My stomach turned in a weird way. We walked until the music faded. She kept glancing back at the house. "Jade, what's going on?" She stopped, hugged herself. "It's Richard. He's been doing things to me at family stuff for 3 years." The words didn't make sense at first. I heard them, but they didn't land. "What do you mean, things?" She could look at me. "When everyone's distracted, he finds me, corners me somewhere private, makes me do stuff." I felt sick. "I know you won't believe me. He said you wouldn't. He said I'm just the niece and he's the son. That you like him no matter what." "Jade." "But I have proof." She cut me off. "I saved everything." She handed me her phone, hands shaking. I scrolled. "You know you like it. Stop pretending. Tell anyone and I'll ruin your life. I'm going to Duke. You're nothing. Same spot at Christmas. Don't make me come find you." Then the photos. I couldn't look for more than a second. I handed the phone back, hugged her tight, let her sob into my shoulder. When she pulled away, I looked her in the eyes. "Stay here. Don't come back inside yet." She wiped her tears. "What are you going to do?" "That's why I don't you there," I said. "Because I don't know what I'm going to do." I walked back through the gate. The party was still going. Laughter. Music, my wife refilling drinks. My sister, Jade's mom, taking photos of the cake. Richard was doing a keg stand while his friends counted. Everyone cheering. I stood there watching him. My son, the kid I taught to ride a bike. The kid I coached in Little League. He finished the keg stand. And everyone erupted. He wiped his mouth and saw me watching. Gave me a thumbs up, but I didn't react. His smile flickered just for a second. Then he went back to his friends. I grabbed a beer, sat down, watched. For the next hour, I watched everything differently. The way Jade's mom kept looking around for her daughter. The way Richard's eyes scanned the yard every few minutes. The way he checked his phone and smirked at something. At one point he walked toward the back door, stopped, looked around, then went inside. I followed. He was in the hallway, typing on his phone. Richard. The hallway was cool, the air conditioning humming a low mechanical tune that contrasted with the rhythmic thumping of the bass from the yard. Richard didn't hear me come in. He was leaning against the floral wallpaper my wife had picked out 3 summers ago, his thumb flying across the screen of his phone. A small, private smile played on his lips, the same smile I'd seen when he'd hit a home run in the state qualifiers. I felt a sudden, violent urge to vomit. "Who are you texting, Rich?" My voice sounded like it was coming from the bottom of a well. It didn't sound like me. It was the voice of a man who had just watched his house burn down while he held the match. Richard didn't jump. He was too smooth for that. He just tilted his head, his thumb hovering over the screen for a fraction of a second before he locked the phone and slid it into his pocket. "Dad," he said, his voice bright easy. "Just thanking some of the guys for the gifts. You okay? You look a little gray." He stepped toward me, reaching out a hand to touch my shoulder. The golden boy. The Duke-bound scholar athlete. I looked at his hand, the same hand that had held a bike handle, a baseball bat, and according to the glowing screen I'd just handed back to Jade, things that should have cost him his soul. I stepped back, avoiding his touch. The air between us curdled. "I just saw Jade," I said. The name hung in the air like a live wire. For a heartbeat, the mask flickered. His pupils dilated, and the easy, practiced charm in his eyes retreated, replaced by something cold and calculating. It was the look of a predator checking the wind. "Oh yeah," he said, his tone neutral. "She's been acting weird all day. I think she's jealous, honestly. You know how she gets when the attention isn't on her." "Jealous of what, Richard?" "The photos." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, pressurized. Outside, someone let out a celebratory scream. A glass broke. Laughter followed. Inside the hallway, the world was ending. "I don't know what she showed you," Richard said, his voice dropping an octave. "The dad persona was gone. But she's been obsessed with me for years. She's unstable. Whatever proof she thinks she has, it's out of context. Or photoshopped. You know how girls are today." "I saw the messages, Rich. I saw the dates. 3 years. Christmas at your grandmother's house. The lake trip." I took a step closer. I was taller than him, but for the first time in 18 years, I felt small. "You told her I wouldn't believe her. You told her you were the son and she was nothing." Richard leaned back against the wall, crossing his arms. He didn't look scared. He looked bored. "And, are you going to prove me right? Or are you going to ruin everything over a few texts from a girl who cries for attention?" "Ruin everything?" I whispered. "Duke, Dad. My scholarship. The family name. Your reputation at the firm. You think people just look at the kid when something like this breaks?" They look at the father. They'll ask what kind of man raised a monster. They'll ask why you didn't notice. He smiled then, a thin, cruel line. If I go down, we all go down. Is that what you want for mom? For your sister? He was negotiating. My son was negotiating his way out of a lifetime of predation, as if it were a business merger. Stay here, I said, my voice shaking. Don't move. Don't touch your phone. If you leave this hallway, I'm calling the police right now. You won't, he said, his voice dripping with a terrifying certainty. You love the version of me you built too much. I walked away from him, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I went to the kitchen, where my wife, Sarah, was laughing with my sister, Martha, Jade's mother. Seeing Martha felt like a physical blow. She was glowing, happy for her nephew, oblivious to the fact that her daughter was currently shaking behind a side gate because of the boy on the cake. There he is, Sarah said, beaming at me. She held up a glass of wine. The proudest father in the county. Why the long face, honey? The keg isn't empty yet. I looked at Martha. Her eyes were kind, tired from years of being a single mother, always leaning on us, on me for support. Martha, I said. We need to talk. Sarah, you too. In the office. Now. The tone of my voice killed the party in a 10-foot radius. The laughter died. Martha's smile faltered, her maternal instincts instantly sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Is it Jade? She asked, her voice rising. Is she okay? I haven't seen her in an hour. Just come into the office, I said. We walked past the hallway. Richard was still there, leaning against the wall, looking at his fingernails. As Martha passed, he looked up and gave her a polite, mournful nod. Everything okay, Aunt Martha? I don't know, honey, she said, her voice trembling. I ushered them into the office and locked the door. The sound of the deadbolt clicking felt final. What is this? Sarah asked, her hands starting to shake. Is this about the money for the car? Because if Richard did something. It's not about the car, Sarah, I said. I looked at Martha. I just spoke to Jade. She's outside by the gate. She told me why she's been withdrawn. Why she didn't want to come today. I told them. I didn't sugarcoat it. I couldn't. I described the messages. I didn't describe the photos. I couldn't bring myself to put those images into words, but I told them they existed. The reaction was a study in human collapse. Martha didn't scream. She sank into my leather office chair, as if her bones had turned to liquid. She made a sound, a low, guttural whimpering that sounded like an animal dying. Sarah, however, moved toward the door. That's a lie, she hissed, her face contorting. She's lying. She's always been jealous of him. She's always been a troubled kid. Sarah, I saw the phone, I said, grabbing her arm. He's 18. He has his whole life ahead of him, she yelled, swinging her arm wildly. She's trying to destroy him. You know how she is, she's dramatic. She wants to hurt us because we're successful. She has photos, Sarah. I roared. The silence returned, sharper this time. Sarah stared at me, her eyes darting back and forth as she tried to find a way to make the truth go away. He's your son, she whispered. He's our son. And she is my niece, I said, looking at Martha, who was now sobbing into her hands. And she is a child. He's been doing this since he was 15. He's been calculated. He's been cruel. I looked at the door. I could see Richard's shadow through the frosted glass. He was standing right outside, listening. I opened the door. Richard didn't flinch. He looked at his mother, then at his aunt, and finally at me. Are we done with the drama? He asked. People are starting to wonder where the hosts are. Martha looked up. Her eyes were red, her face puffy. She looked at Richard, the boy she had babysat, the boy she had bought birthday presents for. And I saw the moment she realized she didn't know him at all. Why, she breathed. Richard sighed, an exaggerated, theatrical sound. Aunt Martha, she's been throwing herself at me for years. I'm a guy. I made some mistakes, sure. But she's the one who kept coming back. If you want to blame someone, blame her lack of boundaries. It was the perfect lie. It was the lie that would divide a family. It was the lie that would allow a golden boy to walk into the sunset while the victim was buried under the weight of, she asked for it. Get out, I said to Richard. Dad. Get out of this house. Now. It's my party, he said, his voice turning cold. And technically, until I head to Duke, this is my home. You can't just. I'm calling the police, I said, reaching for the desk phone. Sarah lunged for the phone, slamming her hand down on the receiver. No. If you call them, it's over. For everyone. Think about the scandal. Think about what this does to your sister's reputation, to Jade's reputation. Do you want her name in a police report? Do you want everyone to know what happened to her? She was using Jade's trauma as a shield for her son. It was a masterclass in manipulation, and for a second, I saw where Richard had learned it. I looked at Martha. She was staring at Richard. Then she looked at me. I want her phone, Martha said, her voice suddenly devoid of emotion. Jade has it, I said. No, Martha said, standing up. I want his phone. Richard stepped back, his hand instinctively going to his pocket. No way. It's private property. If you have nothing to hide, Martha said, walking toward him with a terrifying, slow gait. Give me the phone, Richard. Mom, tell her, Richard said, looking at Sarah. But Sarah was looking at me. She was looking at the man she had married, searching for the weakness she usually exploited. She didn't find it. I stepped between Richard and the door. Give her the phone or I take it. You're going to assault me? Richard sneered. On my graduation day? Go ahead, Dad. Let's see how that looks. He didn't think I would do it. He thought I was the little league coach. He thought I was the firm partner. He didn't realize that in that moment, I was just a man who had realized he had raised a wolf in his own sheepfold. I didn't hit him. I simply grabbed his wrist with a grip I hadn't used in 20 years. The grip of a man who spent his weekends at the gym to outrun the aging process. I twisted, not enough to break it, but enough to make him gasp. I reached into his pocket and pulled out the device. Hey, he yelled, findling his footing. That's theft. I handed it to Martha. The passcode is his birthday, I said. He's too arrogant to change it. Martha's fingers hovered over the screen. Richard watched her, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine fear in his eyes. Not guilt. Fear. The fear of a businessman about to lose his biggest account. The party outside was reaching its crescendo. The Macarena started playing, a ridiculous, upbeat contrast to the carnage in the office. Martha scrolled. Her face went from pale to a ghostly, translucent white. She stopped at something. Her hand went to her mouth. You told her you would kill her dog, Martha whispered. You told her you'd tell everyone she was a slut if she didn't come to the basement at Christmas. Sarah tried to look, but Martha pushed her away. No, Sarah. You don't get to see. You don't get to find a way to excuse this. Martha looked at Richard. I loved you, she said. Richard didn't say anything. He just looked at the floor, his jaw set. He was already planning his defense. He was thinking about lawyers. He was thinking about how to spin this. I'm calling the police, Martha said. Martha, wait, Sarah pleaded, clutching her sister-in-law's arm. Let's talk about this. We can get him help. We can send him to a program. If he goes to jail, his life is over. His life? Martha shrieked, the sound finally breaking through the office walls. What about Jade? Her life has been over for 3 years. She's been sitting at our dinner table, watching him eat, watching you brag about him, while he was. She couldn't finish the sentence. I walked to the window. Outside, the kids were dancing. The sun was beginning to set, casting long, orange shadows across the lawn. I saw Jade. She was standing by the side gate, exactly where I'd left her. She looked so small, so utterly alone in the middle of a celebration for her tormentor. I turned back to the room. The party is over, I said. What? Sarah asked. Everyone out, I said. I'm going out there, I'm telling everyone to leave, and then we are calling the police. Richard, go to your room and stay there. I'm not going anywhere, Richard said, his voice regaining its edge. You can't make me. And you're not ending the party. Think about the neighbors. Think about the talk. I don't care about the talk anymore, Rich, I said. I care about the girl you broke. I walked out of the office, through the hallway, and out onto the deck. I stood at the railing. The music was loud. I walked over to the DJ booth, a local kid we'd hired for $50 an hour. I reached over and pulled the plug. The silence was instantaneous and deafening. 100 faces turned toward me. The party's over, I said, my voice echoing off the house. Everyone needs to leave. Now. Dad, what are you doing? One of Richard's friends shouted. We just started the second keg. Leave, I said, my voice cold. Now. Or I start calling parents. Confused, grumbling, the crowd began to disperse. They sensed the darkness in my face. They saw my wife come out onto the deck, her face a mask of horror. They saw Martha run past them toward the gate, toward her daughter. Within 10 minutes, the yard was a graveyard of plastic cups and discarded streamers. I went back inside. Richard was in the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of water. He looked completely unbothered. You really did it, he said, taking a sip. You really nuked it all. Hope you're happy, Dad. Duke is going to love hearing about the domestic disturbance at my house. You're not going to Duke, Richard, I said. Oh, and who's going to stop me? You already paid the tuition. I am, I said. I'm calling the admissions office tomorrow, and I'm giving them the police report number. He froze. The glass stopped halfway to his mouth. For the first time, the reality of the situation hit him. Not the morality of it. He was incapable of that. But the consequence. You wouldn't, he whispered. Watch me. The front door opened. 2 police officers stepped in. Martha had called them from the yard. The next 6 months were a blur of depositions, screaming matches, and the slow, agonizing death of my marriage. Sarah never chose Jade. She chose the golden boy. She spent our savings on the best defense attorney's money could buy. She told the neighbors Jade was a liar. She told the court Richard was a victim of a vindictive relative. I moved out. I took a small apartment near the office. The trial was a nightmare. Richard sat at the defense table in a suit I had bought him, looking like the picture of innocence. But Jade was a warrior. She stood on that witness stand and told the truth. She showed the jury the messages. She showed them the photos. When the verdict came back, guilty on all counts, Sarah collapsed. Richard didn't. He just looked at me across the courtroom with a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. He didn't feel sorry for what he did to Jade. He only hated me for being the one who didn't look away. A year later, I was sitting on a park bench. It was a crisp autumn afternoon. "Hey, uncle." I looked up. Jade was standing there. She looked different. She'd cut her hair. There was a lightness in her eyes that hadn't been there at the graduation party. She was attending a local community college, taking art classes. "Hey, kiddo," I said, standing up to hug her. "I wanted to thank you," she said, pulling back. I know you lost everything. The house, Mom, the firm." "I didn't lose everything, Jade," I said, and I meant it. "I found my soul. It was just buried under a lot of expensive junk." We walked together through the park. The sun was setting, just like it had on that afternoon in June. But this time, there was no music. No cheating. No lies. Just the quiet, steady sound of the truth, and the long, slow work of healing. Richard was in a cell 300 miles away. Duke was a distant memory. The golden boy was gone. And for the first time in 18 years, I felt like a good father.